Rebel forces in Damascus have declared the capital city free of longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad.
Over 5 decades of Assad family rule in Syria have come to an end. In December 2024, rebel forces seized Damascus in a swift and decisive offensive. This historic event marked the fall of Bashar al-Assad's 24-year reign, leaving the nation at a crossroads. Syria now faces the dual challenges of rebuilding and forging a path toward a peaceful and democratic future.
He's emerged as the man leading the charge of fighters in Syria.
Born Ahmed Hussein al-Shara in 1982, al-Julani's path to power was marked by controversy and transformation in Deir ez-Zor under Hafez al-Assad's regime.
In 2003, after the US invasion of Iraq, Julani left Syria, joining al-Qaeda in Iraq.
His early life remains shrouded in mystery, but reports suggest he pursued religious studies and was deeply influenced by the ideology of resistance.
The leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham became prominent in 2016 when he announced the rebranding of his armed group, Jabhat al-Nusra.
Al-Julani rose to prominence during the Syrian civil war as the leader of the al-Nusra Front, an affiliate of al-Qaeda. In 2016, he rebranded his group as HTS, distancing it from al-Qaeda to gain wider support and legitimacy.
News about the transfer of power, or at least the rebels entering Damascus and President Assad having left.
Critics argue that his leadership may continue the cycle of extremism, raising concerns about inclusivity and stability in Syria.
And most recently, he's been trying to present a more moderate view of the revolution to take back Syria from decades of Assad's brutal rule.
The offensive that toppled Assad was meticulously planned and executed. HTS, in collaboration with other rebel factions, launched a series of coordinated attacks. Beginning on November 27, 2024, the rebels rapidly advanced southward, capturing strategic cities such as Aleppo and Homs.
Between Iran and the region, we urge him to distance Iraq from entering the new furnace of what's happening in Syria.
Military experts attribute the success of the offensive to a combination of factors: weakening of Assad's forces due to international sanctions and a prolonged civil war.
Revolutionaries began entering the city of Hama to sanitize up the wound that has been left in Syria for 40 years.
Years of international sanctions drained the Syrian government's resources, and the military was ill-equipped to mount a robust defense. Many Syrians viewed the rebels as liberators, providing critical grassroots support and logistical advantages. While direct foreign intervention was limited, neighboring countries covertly supplied the rebels with arms and financial aid. Turkey played a key role by facilitating the movement of fighters and supplies across its border.
And all the unjustly detained people from the regime's prisons have been released. They went on.
By the time the rebels reached Damascus, government defenses had largely collapsed. On December 8th, the capital fell with minimal resistance. Assad and his family reportedly fled to Moscow, marking the end of his regime.
Reports say that President Assad has left Damascus by plane for an unknown destination.
The fall of Damascus triggered an outpouring of jubilation among many Syrians. Crowds gathered in Umayyad Square, tearing down portraits of Assad and chanting slogans of freedom. However, the celebrations were tempered by widespread looting and sporadic violence. Rebel leaders, including al-Julani, urged civilians to protect public institutions and refrain from acts of revenge. The global response to Assad's fall has been mixed, reflecting the complexity of Syria's geopolitical significance. United States and allies, President Joe Biden welcomed the end of Assad's reign, describing it as a victory for the Syrian people. In a televised address, he emphasized the importance of protecting civilians and supporting a peaceful transition of power. The United States pledged humanitarian aid and called for an international conference to discuss Syria's future. Russia and Iran. For Russia and Iran, Assad's ouster represents a significant geopolitical setback. Both countries had invested heavily in propping up his regime, viewing Syria as a key ally in the Middle East. Russian President Vladimir Putin condemned the rebel offensive and called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Iran, meanwhile, vowed to continue supporting its allied militias in Syria, raising concerns about a protracted proxy war. Turkey, which has long opposed Assad, cautiously welcomed the rebels' victory. However, Turkish officials expressed concerns about the potential for instability and the rise of extremist factions. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called for international cooperation to ensure that Syria does not descend into chaos. Israel, which has maintained a tense relationship with Syria, reinforced its military presence in the Golan Heights. While welcoming the fall of Assad, Israeli officials voiced concerns about the power vacuum and the potential for increased Iranian influence in the region. The challenges of rebuilding. The fall of Assad marks the beginning of a new phase in Syria's long-running crisis. The country faces immense challenges, including political fragmentation. Syria remains deeply divided along sectarian and ideological lines. Establishing a unified government will require significant compromise and reconciliation. Humanitarian crisis. Over half of Syria's population has been displaced by the conflict. Rebuilding homes, schools, and hospitals will take years, if not decades. Economic collapse. The Syrian economy has been decimated by war and sanctions. Reviving industries and creating jobs will be critical to preventing further unrest. Security threats. The presence of multiple armed groups, including remnants of ISIS, poses a significant security challenge. Disarming militias and integrating them into a national army will be a delicate process. Al-Julani's vision for Syria. In his post-victory address, al-Julani outlined his vision for Syria. He promised to establish a government that respects Islamic principles while ensuring the rights of all citizens, including minorities. He also pledged to hold free and fair elections within 2 years, signaling a break from the authoritarianism of the past. Critics, however, question whether al-Julani's promises are genuine. They point to HTS's history of repression in Idlib, where the group has been accused of silencing dissent and imposing strict religious laws. International observers remain skeptical, warning that Syria's new leadership may simply replace one form of authoritarianism with another. Voices from the ground. The voices of ordinary Syrians offer a poignant glimpse into the nation's struggles and hopes. Hanan, a schoolteacher from Aleppo, expressed cautious optimism. "We have suffered so much," she said. "I pray that this time we can finally build a country where our children can live in peace." Others like Ahmed, a farmer from Homs, remain wary. "We've seen so many promises broken," he said. "I'll believe in change when I see it." Syria's future remains uncertain. While the fall of Assad represents a moment of hope, it also carries the risk of renewed conflict. The international community will play a crucial role in shaping the country's trajectory, but much will depend on the actions of its new leaders.
We are not seeing that sort of thing here in Damascus, just having crossed into Syria.
As Syrians navigate this pivotal moment, they do so with the weight of history on their shoulders. Choices made in the coming months will determine whether the nation emerges from its dark past into a brighter future or descends into further chaos.